It says we're live on Facebook. We are live on Facebook. Welcome to the Why Don't You, number 42, Let Mistakes Happen. So why don't you let mistakes happen is the topic. Obviously, we're going to talk about the benefits and the negatives, the unbenefits. I don't want to take over like I usually do. So who wants to go first, please? Anyone got any thoughts about the topic of letting mistakes happen? Oh, you all talk at once. I can't. Right. Neil.
Thanks for that. I've not got any thoughts. I'm just waiting to see what and listen to what everybody else has got to say, to be honest.
Right. Terry's got something. How weird.
And it's not piles this time. I'm just going to say I have my own thoughts on this and on this subject, and I'm sure we all have, and I'd be interested to hear arguments against what I believe.
Interesting. So I could play devils for a change.
You could, yeah.
It's usually you, isn't it?
Well, sometimes.
So
that's what I'm looking forward to.
Letting mistakes happen. Yeah, Graham, go for it.
Okay.
Oh, you're remuted, Graham. We can't hear you at the moment. Can you unmute again? Cheers.
Okay. So, no swearing. Any other word can be used, but fear. Flee everything and run. You can replace the first word with something else if you wish to do so, Terry. Yeah. Can't think what that is at all.
So about mistakes, Graham. So what you're saying,
why don't you let mistakes happen? Because you're scared. You're scared of the mistake. Yeah, you're scared of the judgment. Yeah, mistakes are wrong. You get punished for making mistakes, Terry. I just want to make sure he's paying attention. Yeah. And so you don't let mistakes happen because of fear.
Yep. Is it just us, as in the ADI, that is scared of mistakes? Open to everybody. Phil, what would you say? Thanks, Graham.
Personally, I see nothing wrong with letting mistakes happen, as long as the mistakes are, as long as it's kept safe. Obviously, that's the main thing. And if the mistakes are helping towards whatever goal you set for that session, then there's no harm in letting them make a mistake and then looking at what's happened and how things could be changed.
Does it depend on the mistake, Phil? I want to go back to what Graham was talking about in a minute, but Phil, does it matter on the mistake? Is it, I'm not so good at parking just yet, and I'm a bit quick.
I think as long as it's sort of working towards whatever the goal is and everything is kept safe, then yeah, let them make mistakes, let them try and sort out how they can change things. And if it's needed, then you can help them, but let them have a go to themselves first, I think.
So can I practice driving up to the curb really quick to park, Phil, in your car?
Do it in your own car.
But it's we've got to think about what is the mistake, because we're doing the generalized thing about fear is going to be a major barrier for both us and the pupils. I honestly believe that pupils are going to be scared of making mistakes. So is it a worthwhile discussion? Oh, Linda's nodding. So that means you have to say something in a second, Linda. Thank you, Phil. Still want to come back to what Graham was talking about. Well, we are talking about. Come on, Linda, come on. Can't get away with it now. You've been nodding that.
Yeah, I think some students are so scared of making mistakes because they've never actually been allowed to make a mistake.
Yeah.
the other thing is, I think in school sometimes they strive for perfection, and they can't even comprehend that they are going to make mistakes. And I always try and get an agreement at the beginning that I will actually let you make a mistake. How do you feel about that? And it's not always the reaction I expect. So just having a conversation makes a difference.
Fabulous. What reactions do you get, Linda? I've seen you, Sammy, and I've seen you, Kenny.
Some don't like it at all. Some don't like the idea of making a mistake because they've just not ever been used to making mistakes. And others are quite open to it and feel quite relieved that they're allowed to make a mistake. Yeah.
I'm glad I don't have to not make mistakes when I do these webinar things. I haven't asked permission to make mistakes. I just do them.
But they're learning opportunities, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, lovely Linda. Thank you. Sammy and Teresa.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. So I was going to mention what Graham came out with at the beginning, so that's good. We're on the same page. You know, that we have a relationship, an association with making mistakes, you know, and that comes from our core beliefs. You know, I'm stupid, I've done it wrong. You know, oh, I always fail at that, so I'm not even going to try. And then people kind of back down from even trying because they think that they're going to make a mistake. And by thinking that they're going to make a mistake, they're just telling their subconscious that they are going to make a mistake, and then they'll make one. And so I think it was Linda who said that we do need to give ourselves and our clients permission to make mistakes and to understand that we can learn from them. We're not little flies that go banging our heads against a window and then keep repeating and repeating the same thing. You know, we've got these amazing brains that can reflect. We can think about what we've done. We can come up with ideas and we can change them. And only by experiencing things can we do that. So that's what it comes down to, is allowing that safe environment to experience making mistakes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Totally agree. And it's all about the contract, to put what Linda was talking about in a word, or in a concept. It's the contract. How do you feel about that is a lovely question, like that, Linda, a lot. Checking how somebody feels about you allowing them to make mistakes, because it may be the clarification, then the contract, where you can clarify, well, no, not dangerous things. I can't afford to replace the tire on my car, Phil's car. But it's that kind of thing, experimenting and hearing what people say. And, you know, Sammy, Graham, Linda, it's all good, really good so far, and exactly what Phil was saying. Kenny, and then Terry, and then Teresa. I think that was the order, because Terry did some hands up because I missed him. Sorry, Terry. Kenny first, please.
Thanks, sir. I was going to just throw a slightly different tact on it. When is a better time to make a mistake? When you've got the benefit of wisdom beside you, or when you're out on your own? If you've got somebody with you there, that voice of experience, that's maybe been there and done it before, that's made that mistake already, then it allows you to just bounce the ideas off it at that time as to how it can be resolved. Whereas if you're then on your own, you're left sitting there and maybe not sure how to actually then correct it afterwards, and you end up then falling into a cycle of repeating mistakes at that time.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it's part of this. Oh, now you're all moving around the screen. It's part of this contracting. It's the same thing. But Kenny, good point. And it's having that experience, but that's exactly what Linda was saying as well, isn't it? You're both backing each other up. Graham and Steph, I have seen you. It's Terry next, but you're backing up. Thank you, Kenny.
Just going back to Graham's fear word, something that I had to deal with in the early years of transition from instruction to coaching was when letting mistakes happen is what do other instructors are going to think, or other members of the public are going to think if I let them cut this corner here. You know, what they're going to think, who's that instructor? Who's that Wally? Letting them cut a corner like that. You know, so that's something to get over.
Call yourself a professional, Terry.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally agree. I can't agree more. And it is in that transition from the pure instruction side of things towards the coaching side. That's when you do notice it, when you do start to back off a little bit. And you know, it is how to manage it, which is the really difficult thing. Good point. Teresa, Graham, Steph, I believe. I think you all guys are just testing my memory today.
Feel free to make a mistake, Fiona, it's all right.
Thanks.
I think there's two perspectives from that I would say. One from the customer, learner, trainee point of view, that feeling, like Linda said, of having permission to make a mistake, because you've got a culture of them having to be perfect, and you end up with, as a teacher, sort of, you have data, you know, targets to reach, and so they are measured very much on how many points did you get in this exam, or what grade are you at, and things like that. So the minute they come below a standard, they then assume that they're rubbish and thick and can't do it. And I think from our perspective as a trainer, coach, that it's about that rapport. So, you know, the ones that are going to be happiest making those mistakes and learning from them, being able to reflect on them, and are going to be the ones that you have the best connection with, because they are going to feel comfortable in your company, and they can have a little laugh about catching the curb if it hasn't blown your wheel, you know, or, you know, maybe sort of catching the verge, and, you know, make a comment about not being a vegetarian or already eaten or something like that, you know. And I think if you've got that relationship with them, it makes life a bit easier when it comes to that. And then from the other perspective, I still, at this point, 3 years in, fear letting mistakes happen. And so going back to what Phil said about it being safe, I think everybody's idea about what safe is might be different as well. I'm aware of a very well-known instructor in our area who's got a reputation for letting people drive into verges and catch curbs, but then he's got a fleet of cars he can go to, whereas I haven't. I've got my one car, and if it's off the road, I'm stuffed. So if I see that they're getting a bit close to the curb, I'm going to intervene. So, you know, and then you've got to then build that rapport back. So that's really, really important. I think they need to know where they stand, like you said, with the contract. It's like, I'm not going to let this happen. I might intervene in this situation, but, you know, you're allowed to make a mistake. It's important that you're comfortable to do that. And yeah, and I think it was, who was it that said about, you know, Kenny said about having that experience next to you, you know, making the mistakes while you've got somebody there to help, and not, you know, later on, or at least when you do make them later on, being able to reflect on them and do something about it and take responsibility for them. So sorry.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Thank you, Teresa. Graham is next, and then Steph.
Okay. I'm going to take this from a old-fashioned perspective of when we were part 3 trained and the core competencies. As an instructor, it's easier not to let them make mistakes, because then I haven't got to pull them over, I haven't got to do the fault ID, I haven't got to do the analysis, I ain't got to do any remedial action. I can just tell them to slow down. I can just tell them to check their mirrors, and as long as they slow down and check their mirrors, I ain't got to do any other teaching. Yeah. So if I don't let them make mistakes, I can just sit there for a couple of hours and have a nice drive around in the country, yeah, and go for a general drive. And you know, they've had, and at the end of the lesson, they've had a wonderful lesson because they've performed really brilliantly, haven't they? Because they haven't made any mistakes. And then one day they have a driving test. Oh, it was nerves. The nerves got the better of me. Yeah. Yeah, because my lessons are really good. And the instructor's going, yeah, your lessons are really good. Because on your lessons, you always perform. Yeah, you're really good. And then actually, if we reflect back, we actually never allowed them to make any mistakes or gave them any responsibility, because it was far easier to instruct them all the way through it. And that way, no actual real learning took place.
That's it. It is. After Steph, Teresa, I've got you. But it is literally, how did you guys get better at being an ADI? How did anyone out there? How did I get better at being an ADI? I was incognito because the driver didn't necessarily know that I was messing up, especially with my coaching, asking 3 questions at the same time. What a ridiculous thing I was doing. Right. How are you going to do this? Well, I don't know how you're feeling. Sorry, but it's all about it was definitely Steph next, and then Teresa again, I believe. But every now and then you all move around the screen a little bit, which is awkward. So, Steph.
Yeah, just kind of backing up what Kenny and Graham have just said. If we don't let them make mistakes, if they were to drive perfectly the whole time, you know, never mind that by fluke they pass a test, they then go out driving by themselves and they get difficulty how to correct it if they've never had to deal with that problem before. A reverse park, a parallel park, you know, a junction, whatever the mistake or not a mistake, the perfect drive is, and they suddenly get into trouble, how are they going to know what to do? They've never had to think for themselves because, as Graham said, old-fashionedly, if we're telling them, then we've done all the thinking for them. So they need to make mistakes and use, as you say, Kenny, our expertise.
Yeah, I think it's using our expertise to know, anticipate the type of mistake. Is it a little one that's manageable, or is it going to be, is it cutting a corner with somebody coming out of the you know, out of the junction, or is it a cut in the corner and there's no one there? Kind of, it's that, isn't it? It's us managing that. Yes, Terry. Yes, Terry. Yes, Terry. Yes, Terry. But Teresa was first.
So going back to the rapport thing, I had something I was going to add, and then I felt like I was rambling, so I shut up. The feedback element of that. So, like, if you've got that good rapport and you're allowing the mistake, then the other side of that obviously is that you're not telling them they've made the mistake, they're able to identify it for themselves. And so if you've got that good relationship, they're then going to say, well, that wasn't very good. And you'll say, well, tell me more about that. Why didn't it feel very good? And then they can tell you why that happened. And then you can discuss the implications. And it might just be very minor. And it might be that you then turn around and say, okay, so how often does that happen? And, you know, then they can go, oh, actually, that's the first time. Well, okay, then. So how serious is it? What do we need to do about it? You know, how do you want some help? And then it might be that it never happens again. It might have just been one of those things. But if the feedback's coming from them, that makes life a bit more comfortable. So you're not turning around and saying, well, you cut that corner, didn't you? Or you're a bit close to that car. Or did you see that person? You were this, you know, they stepped off the curb and you know, you should have given them more space. It's not about you telling them or identifying it. It's sort of helping them with the anticipation, maybe. So it's preventing the mistake sort of gently. So you can actually do it in advance. You can see it's going to come. And then actually you can discuss it afterwards from their perspective. So I think the feedback side of things is really important.
Absolutely, totally agree. And I think it is, get the information out, because we don't mind it. If we tell ourselves, if I tell you guys, I'm a bit too round, I'm a bit too overweight, I don't feel the same as when you guys say, ugh, you put on a bit of weight, haven't you? So just don't tell me. Michelle, I've got you, but Terry was first. thank you, Teresa.
I'll just go back to your point, Fiona, about it's comfort for me when I step in. As soon as I start feeling uncomfortable, I step in. If I'm comfortable in what they're doing, no matter what it is, as long as I'm comfortable, it happens. It carries on.
Yeah, that's a really good way of thinking about it, actually, isn't it? It's the comfort thing. As soon as we're scared, you mean scared, uncomfortable, like getting a bit.
Before scared stage.
Yeah, before scared. Oh, good.
Scared is too late, man.
Yeah, scared is absolutely too late. Thank you, Terry. Michelle, remember to unmute, please. Yay.
Okay, so yeah, we've got, like Teresa was saying, there's recognition of when things are going wrong and how they can recognize that point where it is slightly starting to slide out of control and what they can do to bring it back in before it really gets silly and out of control. And that's important that they recognize these points, especially for like the safe driving for life that we are obviously trying to produce. But the mistake process itself, in my eyes, it lowers their inhibitions. They're more able to feel secure in taking responsibility for their drive, because they're happier, because they know that if they do something wrong, it's okay, it's allowed. You know, you've got that security, you've got that contract that you make before you do that drive. Okay, what's going to happen if? Do you want me to step in if? You know, so they've got that safety net there. They've got that agreement there because we have made that agreement with them. And then when they feel more secure, if it isn't going right, they're happier to ask, or they're happier, okay, yeah, all right, I need to do this next time, don't I? So that whole dynamic, that whole learning process, once they're more relaxed, they're actually going to learn more in the long run as well.
Absolutely, totally agree. Thank you, Michelle. It's one of those things. In fact, would you agree that if you call it a mistake, does it change it compared to if you turn to somebody and say, any thoughts? Do you know what I mean? Without even mentioning the word mistake, without saying ooh, or without going, pull you up on the left. You made a mistake back there. What does it feel like? Is there an option for us to let it happen, but then just to invite the person to say something first? Could it make a difference? I don't know. I've been asked it a few times from Mr. Hooper when I've been, he's been checking me out when he's making sure I'm delivering one of his courses. Okay, he will say, what are your thoughts on that? And he'll let me regurgitate all of the things I wasn't happy with and this and that, and I did that and I did that. And he goes, oh, nice. And there's another thing. Oh no, he doesn't do that. But it's one of those things. If you give people the opportunity without actually naming it, would you agree, guys, that it might make a difference to people? I'm hoping everyone else. Is there anything on Facebook? Maybe no one's watching on Facebook. Maybe everyone's here that's interested. I don't know.
A few little comments.
We've got quite a few. We've got Sally Carr. She said about peer pressure. Mark Cole, Wibble. We've got Neil Hughes. So he's just started a watch, having a good rapport, and at the start saying if mistakes are going to be made, we're going to chat about it. Mark Cole, he says we've got a balance between a safe mistake and one that's patently not. Yes, we want to coach, but we're ADIs first, and we've got a duty of care basically to the public as well. Neil Hughes says, Graham, that's easy to do. It's a few minutes ago now.
Thanks, Michelle. Otherwise, I mean, if we read them all out, we end up just listening.
No, that's
Gotcha,
yeah,
Graham.
that's it.
Brilliant. Sammy, did you have anything to add on those? Because Sammy's usually the one monitoring all the Facebook feeds and letting me know what's going on. Brilliant. Graham's got his hand up. Yes, please, Graham.
I was thinking about, why don't you let mistakes happen? Okay. Well, the thing is, how do you ever carry out an actual assessment if you don't let mistakes happen? And it was what it was is I just was writing an article, in fact, I think I can't remember. He's gone. It was either yesterday or today. I can't remember anyway. But I was right, and I was thinking about mistakes and learning, and about performance, and that, you know, clients can have a good lesson and you can give a feedback on that lesson and their performance is really good. Just for argument's sake, let's just say we're doing a topic, meeting traffic, just for argument's sake, we're doing a topic, meeting traffic. They've had a really good lesson. They understand what they've done. They performed really well. How do we know if they've actually learnt it? Yeah, because even if we've assessed them on that lesson, it's fresh and in the moment. The only way really that we can assess if they have learnt it is to come back maybe 5 hours later and either do a formal or informal assessment on meeting traffic and allow and see what happens if the mistakes happen. Because otherwise, how do we know if they've learnt it if we don't allow them to have the opportunity to make the mistakes?
Absolutely.
And Terry, he was reminding me of something. Yeah, I thought I'd wake you up. Yeah, he was you remind me of something, and I can't remember what it was, but it was something you were saying earlier. I know we all make mistakes still, but I was thinking about control. Yeah, why don't we let mistakes happen? Control. I'm a control freak. I'm not letting go of this lesson. Yeah, I like being in control. It's my only chance to be in a superior position. Yeah, I'm in charge and I ain't letting go of that. Yeah, and so sometimes we don't let mistakes happen because I want to be in control. I want to be in charge.
Yep.
And other times but there is a flip side to that, because if we allow mistakes to happen, then I can show them who's boss.
You are a nice person.
Yeah.
I agree. I totally agree. And there are a lot of us as ADIs. We want to be our own boss. They even have it as the advertisements even. They have it, don't they? Be your own boss, manage your own diary, do this, be in control. And in fact, I think, yes, when I was training, doing my part 3, what I was told was, make them do it like you do, Fiona. So how do I make people do things like I would do if I'm not the boss? Take control. That's why I wasn't successful on my second part 3. You needed to take control of me. I was dictating the session. You're also a CD or whatever they are. CD. Is that why they changed the name?
I don't know.
I
might use that in the future.
It's a CD. Keith, we started at 2, not 2:30. Welcome, Keith. Welcome, Keith. Keith, we're just in the middle of everything. You'll catch up. I'm sure you've got your thing to say. So if you could remember to mute, that would just be really useful. Has anyone else got anything to say? I'm trying to think of what I had a few things that I was going to bring out. I think it's the discomfort that we all feel. And I can remember the driving test I failed. I have no recollection of anything about the driving test that I passed. Mistake, 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 and it goes into my memory as a permanent. I remember the joy of having passed, but I don't remember anything of it. Which memories stick more, I wonder? I can remember in St Albans, I wasn't born there, so it's St Albans, not Snowbans. In St Albans, being stuck behind a bus because I'd got too close. And I don't, I remember my instructor having to steer me out. So there's all sorts of things. What do I remember about my driving lessons? The joyful bits, or are the horrible bits where I feel like I've made a mistake? I think even one person, I think you're putting your hand up, Teresa. There was a person, we just started training our part 3, and the our instructor, our trainer, helping us get through our part 3, cracked a joke about the instruction, and she never turned up again. So she never became a driving instructor because it was a mistake. You made a mistake, and he really pointed it out. So it can be really hurtful. Some of us are a bit too sensitive and we take it all to heart, and it can be a real big problem. Who's next? Sammy. Oh, Teresa. Got it. Thank you.
So in terms of the control and the comfort thing, that's probably a really big one with me, because I've already said that I'm not going to let somebody like curb my car if I can help it. But even in such a short space of time, I've worked really hard to relinquish that little bit of control, to allow the mistakes to happen, but still feel like I step in too early. So from the wealth of experience in the room, what are the tips to working towards giving that little bit extra to the client? Because Terry said, at the point you feel uncomfortable, so twitchy, as I would say, then, you know, you make some sort of intervention. But I'm very aware that those first couple of lessons, especially the first one out on the main road, when their positioning is awful and you're there sort of hand on the steering wheel, even just to steady, and I find myself overcompensating for that. I want to let them do it, but it's really tough not to have that hand there. And I always tell them that's what I might be doing. I might not be steering for you, but it's just to make sure that we don't end up in the verge or, you know, into the curb or whatever. If it feels like, you know, it's just to give you a bit of comfort. And then as we sort of progress, my hand will come away and I say, did you notice something in that particular drive? Or so I try and turn it into a positive, that I'm intervening less, but I'm very aware of myself that I'm not giving them the chance to discover their own ability. So help.
There you go. Come on then, you guys that have been doing the job. What? Come on.
Which job?
The same one that Teresa's talking about. What experiences have you got, guys, that you're going to share? And Steph, I've seen you, and Graham. Oh, Graham, are you answering Steph? Steph, I'll come to you in a minute, just in case.
I was going to answer Teresa's.
Yeah, I want a few of those, and then I'll come to Steph, if that's all right, Steph.
Teresa's question, really. I suppose it comes down to managing the risk, doesn't it? But also, if you're putting a pupil out on a main road for the first time, they're likely to suffer from cognitive overload. There's too much going on for them, so it's dividing that risk, so that you can be in agreement, you know, of what risk you're gonna manage and what risk they're gonna manage, even at a very early stage. So you might say, for example, going out on the main road the first time, look, I don't want you to concern yourself with your mirrors. You just look at what's going on ahead of you. Yeah. I'm here. If I feel that you're drifting in or out, I will say something like, you know, check your position or whatever you've agreed in the first place. I probably won't have time to give you a direct instruction. So if I do touch the wheel, don't fight me. I'm just going to put you back online. And then, look, I'm hardly touching the wheel. You do it. I've let go with both finger and thumb. You're doing it. I'll take my hand away again and just negotiate. You know, some are better than others, but negotiating it. I remember doing this really badly once. I was coming along a road called West Pole Avenue with a lady called Gloria. I remember her. Yeah. And we were coming, it was the steering what triggered. We were coming into this tight right-hand bend with a T-junction just round the corner. Unfortunately, the curb was quite a low-level curb, and I was trying to allow Gloria to make a mistake, which wasn't a problem. She was well capable of doing that without any help from me. And I went for the wheel, Teresa, and she fought me on the right-hand wheel. And as we mounted the curb, Gloria mounted me screaming, ah, 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 and I was wedged up against the window with these large objects stuck in my face because she was rather a large lady. And I'm like, and I'm going, we've stopped, you can get off of me now. And we were actually on the curb, and this lady had mounted me, honestly, seriously, and I was pressed up against the window by this woman. It was like, oh yeah, so we can all make mistakes. Yeah, so that was one of mine I just confessed to, but it was a story that it was something that stuck with me, and I learned from it.
Absolutely. Yeah. What might you do differently next time?
I think I could have chosen a better route.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking about you.
How did you spell her name, Graham?
How did I spell her name?
Yeah.
Gloria.
Gloria. Go again. Start singing, start a song. Go, Graham.
No, I can't sing, so.
Oh, neither can I, but so what?
Yeah.
No. Let's make a mistake together.
I'm not taking my hand down.
Has anyone else got any wise words of wisdom how to really think about the mistake in answer to Teresa? That's a good one, Graham. Ooh, Sammy, come on then.
I was just thinking about what Teresa said, and what it usually comes down to for me is how proactive are you being with relation to the curb and that kind of thing. So like the elements involved in that is how well have you shared the roles and responsibilities, and how specific's the goal, what the level and ability is around that goal. Are you managing the risk around that goal? And the key to taking control or sitting back for me is, will it hurt or damage or inconvenience anyone else? And the curb in the car or protecting your allies or whatever. I think it's something that you can predict if you are being proactive. So I would just maybe take a look at how proactive you're being. Because of course, when I first started, that happened to me a couple of times, but then coming back to allowing mistakes to happen, we as instructors make mistakes as well. And so what happens is we reflect on that, learn from it. So I learned from that how to be more proactive as an instructor sitting there. So that'd be an area that I would be looking at.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sammy. I agree. I totally agree. But that's easy for me to stand here and just agree with everybody, isn't it? My point I would like to bring up is, when the pupil says, but what if I steer the wrong way? Well, I'm thinking about a reversing maneuver as a simple example, but you know how they get jumpy about making mistakes themselves, and you say, well, do it on purpose then. Let's find out what happens. What if you do steer the wrong way? I could steer the other way. Oh. It's a really good way of, well, why don't you do it wrong? I have actually done it on purpose with people. Keep it safe, but do little things incorrectly. Little things, but this is about agreement. And I can't think of an example, but I know I've been in the car with people saying, well, why don't you try it and not do it quite right, and then see how you feel afterwards. Not quite right, as in call it a mistake if you wish. Anyway, does that help, Teresa? No one else has got their hands up. I think Neil's either ignoring us. Oh, Terry. Steph, I haven't forgotten you, promise. Terry, go for it.
There's a little is it an anagram we use for that?
An acronym.
An acronym.
Mnemonic.
Mnemonic.
Acronym.
Mnemonic. KISS, Keep it safe, stupid.
Simple or safe? Safe and simple.
We've taken over it. We've taken it over. We're using it now.
Yeah, I think so. Excellent. We are using it. Definitely. Thanks, Terry. Steph, it's been half an hour since you put your hand up.
Hasn't, but thank you. Just two things. Second part will kind of help Teresa a little bit as well, but it was going back on something you said about it's not just the pupils, but us making mistakes. And how did we learn? Well, I think we've all learned, you know, to become better ADIs by making those mistakes. And I remember my first lesson, I made the mistake of not being proactive of using my jewels, because I thought, well, I can't let them think that I've got to use my jewels straight away, you know, and it cost me a tie my first lesson. And I've learned loads of things, you know, not only from your Zoom meetings, but from others, from my continual, you know, development of myself, from just sitting next to pupils and thinking, well, next time I know I'm not going to say that, I'm going to say something different. But what I was going to say to Teresa, what I'm saying to you is we have got to make mistakes to learn and grow better. And what I'm going to say to Teresa is you're doing the right thing by being proactive. I now know I would rather be, I want to call it overprotective rather than instructing, of perhaps taking that wheel or perhaps tapping those brakes, and it keeps us safe and our car safe. And I'm like you, Teresa, I'm a one car business. If I don't have a car, they don't have another lesson, and nor do the rest of the pupils. So I don't think there's anything wrong with being, you know, proactive or protective.
No, it's all about the contract. It is all about the contracting and whatever. Thank you, Steph. I appreciate it. Sammy.
I wanted to go onto the Facebook feed for a moment, because we've got Mark on there, and he's made a couple of really interesting comments. So he's working with the clinically anxious, and usually looks at triggers of how it's managed, how the anxiety is managed. So his clients understand often where things are likely to go wrong and mistakes that are likely to make, but are afraid to explore. So what I think what he's saying there is providing a safe environment for mistakes to happen, to kind of ease off that anxiety. I think that's what you're saying, Mark. So allowing them to explore both the issue and the feeling of anxiety and build grounding techniques in at each stage.
Absolutely.
So, you know, like mistakes, if they're given as triggering anxiety and feelings like that, then we do need to put strategies in place to help those students, don't we? Yeah. And he also said about overload, by starting in the most user-friendly locations possible, discussing triggers again, and possibly anxiety spikes, which help to manage the risk. So it's all about the client and their needs, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So thanks for that, Mark.
Yeah. Mark was, you know, because Graham said it early on, he had the acronym FEAR right at the beginning, and he was talking about fear, and fear is massive, makes a massive difference to the rest of us. Are we more likely to make mistakes in a normal, relaxed driver training session or during a standards check? You know, even us as an individual, as an ADI, when we think about our mistakes, when we've got the pressure comes from all over the place. The wonderful thing that Mark was pointing out, and if it's the Mark, I think it's Mark, hi Mark, it's those people, those clients that we sit with, they're the ones that understand their trigger points. It's all very well. I assumed once, way back in the day, very early on in my coaching career, I assumed that we've got a Grinstead Road roundabout where we live. It's satellite roundabouts, so one centre kind of thing, and then 5 satellite roundabouts around it. I assumed that on her journey that would be her trigger point for her anxiety. No, it was a red traffic light. It's already been red for ages. That was her trigger point. And once I'd worked this out, because I did some scaling stuff with her, she said, I don't know if I have to stop. I don't know if I need to do a rolling start in second or a rolling start in first. I don't know. And I don't know if the other people are going to stop behind me. And you could hear it. But I was assuming that the trigger points would be what might be what might have been for me. So he's spot on, absolutely. As are the rest of you. You've got to use the client because they're the only ones who know what is going to be the worst bit. Yeah, so fear, massive. Thank you, Sammy, and thank you, Mark. Graham, no one else has got their hand up. Graham, go for it.
Okay. Well, I just was thinking there, and something that that happens to us all as driving instructors about, and if we're, and this is the flip side, really, if we're allowing mistakes to happen, we have to be careful of the snowball effect. Once they've made one mistake, they're too busy thinking about the last mistake that they can't focus on what they're supposed to be doing next, because their eyes might be forward, but their brain's definitely backwards. And of course, the next mistake happens and the next mistake happens, and you're stuffed. Yeah, because unless you take back control, those mistakes will roll on. And I think recognizing that is crucial in managing the risk that once they get into the snowball effect, yeah, they're just going to get bigger. Yeah. Absolutely. So don't let the mistakes happen. Yeah. But that's our job. You know?
It's the thing Sammy was mentioning, wasn't it? That proactive thing. And a few of you have mentioned it. Steph mentioned it as well. It's that proactive thing. Think about that in a minute. Please concentrate on that. It's proactive. Manage it in the moment. The mistake, but just get the forward focus again. It's kind of like the treadmill thing, isn't it? Get the, yes, but that. However you do it, however you would do it, and however you would manage it, because it's got to be you. Because if you try and do it my way, it all goes horrible. I've tried to do things other people's ways, and it's an absolute mess. Thank you, Graham.
And I think just adding to that, it's taking away the fear. If you go to let's say the 1 in 3 hill to do hill starts or merging at junctions, the number one fear most pupils will have is rolling backwards. So if you can take that fear away, then they've got a chance, because what happens is, because they're scared, they procrastinate, they don't do anything, and exactly what they're scared of happens every single time. Yeah. So, oh, look, I can't do it. Yeah, you're right, you can't. Yeah. Because I'm scared of rolling backwards. So, and it's managing that fear within them is essential for them being able to do it. And so even though you're letting them have a go, you've got to manage that fear, and you've got to allow them to know that they're safe if they make the mistake. And also your clutch is not going to smell of rotten greens either.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Terry, after Kenny was first, but Graham, thank you for that, because that's the perfect example of let's go and let a mistake happen that I was talking about ages ago. Let's go and roll back on purpose on a hill. Is there anything behind you? Is this a safe place? How do you feel about this as a FAF exploring it? Brilliant. Thank you, Graham, for the wonderful example. I knew I could rely on you guys. Kenny, and then Terry was doing fingers at me.
All right. I think one of the most important things you can actually say to somebody early on is you're going to make mistakes. Make that clear to them right from the very outset. It's going to happen. And you're not alone in it. Everybody else out there makes mistakes as well. They sometimes get people that come in and they have this image that everybody else on the road is perfect, and that they're the only ones out there that are making mistakes. Whereas the reality of it is everybody else is as well. But what's different with them is how they handle it. And that's what they're kind of picking up more on as they go on, is, okay, yeah, I've made that mistake, but here's how I deal with it, rather than the fact that, well, I shouldn't be making mistakes. It's still going to happen. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And Kenny, you just mentioned something and it reminded me of something, but I can't remember what it was. No, it's It is important, that, isn't it? That's it. That's another thing I've done. Sat at the side of the road for a couple of minutes. Tell me the next person you see make a mistake. Oh, that person looks like they're speeding. Oh, do you think that's an intentional mistake or a genuine mistake? Don't know. Because we get judgmental about other people. Maybe. Come on, someone else say something, because otherwise I'll keep talking. Keith, you haven't spoken for ages. Terry. I forgot. Sorry.
And you do it on purpose. You're trying to hurt my feelings.
No.
Try style.
No, I know how to do that.
Yeah, I know. I was just going to. Graham reminded me of something. When we have this agreement that yes, it's fine to make mistakes, it's so important that we're so self-aware in how we react, even our little micro expressions. Because if we say to them, you know, happy to make a mistake, you go for it, and it's like, whoa, you know, it's the rapport's out the window, and so we've got to.
Is this
yes,
a
it's
bad
great.
thing to do?
Yeah.
It's
You've
true.
got to be so careful
It
with
is.
how you react.
Yeah, micro expressions go a long way, don't they? Absolutely. Thank you, Terry. Teresa.
On the flip side of that, Terry, I always tell my clients when on our first meeting that I'm not, you know, some of them will come to me saying, oh, my last instructor used to shout at me, swear at me, whatever. And I always say, look, you know, if I lose my words, it will not be at you directly. It will probably be at the situation. And the reason that it will be at that situation is because I should have handled it better. I said, so, you know, please, if that happens, don't think it's an attack on you, and we'll deal with the situation afterwards. And I've had a couple of those. I had a young lady decided, even though I told her not to move as we were driving down a dual carriageway, and I saw a Mini up on the right-hand side in the second lane and somebody was coming onto the slip road, I told her not to react. It would be fine and we would deal with it. And she just swerved into the right-hand side, and I just freaked. And I said some very choice words and left the dual carriageway, stopped, and then apologized for my loose tongue and said, look, you know, it was the situation rather than you. It wasn't directed at you, because I think everybody's human, and, you know, even in the throes of instructing, we can sometimes misjudge a situation or give them a little bit too much leeway, and then we mishandle something, and, you know, with all the will in the world, we might lose control or say something that we might not want to.
Yeah, the apology, I agree. I think it's massively important. I remember once someone was trying to take a denim jacket off and he was still in the driver's seat. He was trying to take a denim jacket off and I went to help him. And I just nearly touched his jacket and he went, no. Okay. A couple of years later, I found out that ladies don't touch Muslim men and Muslim men don't touch Muslim ladies. I didn't know that. But I just apologized and I thought, oh, well, you know, maybe he's got like issues with people getting close to him. I had no idea that there was, I just felt like I was only touching his jacket. So now if I'm going to invade anyone's space, and I think it's really important, you just, can I help you? And then, mind you, we did it, he learned everything by yes, no, and demo. Has anyone else helped people learn to drive? No. And demo, there was nothing else. Little cars, and that was it. Graham, you were next. The apology is massive, Teresa, absolutely.
Teresa got me thinking about pupils. Why don't you let mistakes happen? And I was thinking about pupils won't let mistakes happen, and they tend to be, there's two ends of a spectrum here. There's the imposter syndrome, yeah, and we can all suffer from that. I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I can't do it. And then we have something called the Dunning-Kruger effect. There always has to be a scientific bloody name for something. But
Neil will
anyway,
remember them.
yeah. But well, yeah. But the pupil doesn't understand that they're making mistakes. They think they're brilliant. We've all had the pupil that thinks there's absolutely nothing going wrong. I am the best driver ever. There's just carnage going on all around them. But no, it's not them. They're fantastic. And that's the two ends of the spectrum, isn't it? The Dunning-Kruger effect, where I'm brilliant. You know, I'm completely ignorant to my own incompetence. And then the imposter syndrome, where I've got no, I am competent, but no, I can't be. No, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy to be good. So we have that. So it's worth having for anyone listening, have a little Google of the Dunning-Kruger event. Actually, I put it in the tri-coaching group later, a little video on the Dunning-Kruger effect and the imposter syndrome. Oh, now I've said something, I better write it down, better I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's me done. I've just got to write something down. Sorry.
But it's all right, Graham. You can make a mistake and forget.
Yeah. Well, that's he has made mistakes in the past, and that's why he is writing it down, Steph. Neil, I'm going to come to you in a second. Has anyone else got any last minute, desperate hand up things that they need to say? Let's see how good Neil's recap is. Come on, Neil.
Okay, so it's quite a funny thing out listening to that at the start, because it was all around fear and pressure and what everybody else thinks of the pupil and what everybody else thinks of the ADI, letting it happen. Like Terry says, you know, coming around a corner and there's a car coming and he's made a mistake and what driving school that is, and so on and so on. It then come out to a bit of rapport and a bit of agreement between the ADI and the pupil to what they're going to do. A lot of people mentioned about safe environment and learning opportunities in that safe environment, if it is safe. And then I think everybody was getting on to the point where if we're proactive and we manage the risks, we're doing what we should do anyway. You know, and Graham mentioned managing the risk, and I think we're assessed on that anyway in our criteria. But also, I thought it was a really good question when Graham says, how do we assess somebody if we don't let them make mistakes 5 hours or 10 hours later? You know, so I think it all comes down to feedback given by both parties. And it's about having that rapport to be able to make that agreement and agree on what's right for both people and moving it forward through their training and them taking responsibility.
Yeah, brilliant. All inclusive of barriers, the barriers to the mistakes from both of us. There's all sorts of barriers to not wanting to and all the rest of it. And what Graham was saying, where people don't even know they're doing it.
Yeah, and the anxiety side as well from the student as well as the ADI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all reinforcing how much the client has to be in control of a lot of this stuff. We need to be in control in some ways, but we haven't got all the answers. We've got all the answers that we've experienced, but we've always got someone new sitting in the seat next to us. Fab. Have I interrupted you too much, Neil?
No, it's fine.
Brilliant.
Carry on.
Brilliant. We have not okayed what the next Why Don't You is. We haven't discussed it as a crew yet. There will be one. What we're thinking of is something like monthly. So that's a sort of, so keep your eyes out. Join the group if you want to not miss when the next one is. Thank you to the newbies. Thank you to the oldies. Welcome back and please come again. It's lovely to see some new faces. And it generates a little bit of extra thought. So if you're out there and watching on FaceAche, please consider coming on the panel. It's some fun, I think. It is fun. So I think it's about time to wave goodbye to the friendly folk on Facebook. Hang around on the panel and we'll have a chat about it afterwards if you'd like. So thank you, Facebook peeps. See you soon. About a month, I think. See ya.